each of these concepts are going to help you to become strong and resilient from inside so that you can face the world and create harmony and balance in your life. I could tell anybody, like, what is the benefit of practicing religion? And the only option we had now was to basically stop. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to my course called 4Ts that will end misery from your life. My name is Iram Said, and if you've been following my channel, then you already know that I am an empowerment coach and a transformation coach for professional Muslim women. And I am myself someone who has transformed her own life. I happen to be a member of the really esteemed organization called Transformational Leadership Council. I am honored to be the first Muslim to be a part of TLC, and TLC is an organization that comprises of some of the top luminaries and transformational coaches from around the world. If you Google them, you'll probably find that some of your favorite teachers and authors from the Western transformational movement are in this group. So I have been teaching transformation to Muslim women for almost 5 years now. And what I do is I've spent almost 2 decades in this space of personal development from the Western mind sciences. I have had the good fortune of learning from some of the top teachers in the world. And I combine what I have learned from the Western mind sciences with the Islamic principles, and together these teachings create extraordinary results. If you would like to find out more information about me or my programs, please go to jamali.love, and you will be able to download some free gifts as well. Again, it's at jamali.love. And I request that if you like this video or my other videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and then share these videos with others that you think might gain some benefit from it. This course is, of course, going to help Muslims that understand the concepts of the 4Ts, which are Tauheed, Taqwa, Tawakkul, Tashakkur. However, these concepts, as you will learn as we dig deeper into these concepts in this course, are universal principles of truth, and they apply to everyone. So even non-Muslims, agnostics, everybody can benefit from this course, because I will give, of course, the Islamic definitions, but I will also try to define it in terms that are secular so that you understand the benefits can be for everybody. So like I said, if you like them and you think somebody can use this in their lives, then please share this video with them. There will be approximately 4 videos, depending on whether I do a question and answer class at the end, which probably will happen. So there will be 5 videos then. So I will explain each concept in a video, and then at the end, I will do a Q&A to answer questions. Each video, each of these concepts are going to help you to become strong and resilient from inside so that you can face the world and create harmony and balance in your life. So again, share it with someone that you think can use it, because God knows these days all of us can use something like this, right? It is these concepts that really helped me to come to a place of harmony, balance, tranquility, and has helped me to create such resilience that I call it ultimate freedom, liberation from misery. So I hope that it will do that for you as well. Why I am doing this course? So, few reasons. I have been teaching this course in my very popular transformational course called 30 Days to Transformation, which I created many years ago to help what in my mind at that time were the most difficult of cases. So these were divorced and women who were divorced and widowed living in Pakistan. So if you're from that culture, you would know that they really have a life situation which is filled with misery. So I created this course for them, and alhamdulillah, the results were 100% after 30 days, which means that we surveyed them before, during, and after the course, and um every single one of them experienced some kind of improvement in life, at least 50%. So that was a huge success. And since then, my course, 30 Days to Transformation, has been changing lives and has impacted the lives of thousands of people, is extremely popular. It is part of Jamali Freedom now, which if you want to check it out, if you want to enroll in the course, it is jamali.love/freedom. The reason why I'm doing the 4Ts course, because as I mentioned, it is part of the longer, the more in-depth 30 Days to Transformation course, but I find that just this portion, the 4Ts, has been really helpful in for many people who have not or cannot join Jamali Freedom. Recently, you might already be aware if you've been following me, there was a controversy where the famous, well-respected Islamic scholar, Dr. Zakir Naik, who is an Islamic preacher, was asked this question by an agnostic person in the crowd. And he said that if I am a non-practicing Muslim, I no longer practice Islam, but I'm a good person. So he was an agnostic, basically. And he said, I'm a good person. I have good ethics. I take care of my children. I take care of my parents, and I take care of other people around me. And I behave well. I'm honest. I don't lie. If I take something from someone, I return it. So I have integrity. Please tell me, what is a benefit, a secular benefit that I get from practicing religion if I'm doing all of those other things already? And I thought that was a great question. Unfortunately, Dr. Naik was not able to explain a benefit to this boy that did not already require you to believe in that particular religion. For example, I could tell anybody, like, what is the benefit of practicing religion? Is, well, you're going to go to heaven and God is going to be pleased with you. And, but he's saying he doesn't believe in any of that. So you cannot give to him a benefit, from the Quran, for example. He doesn't believe in it. And is it possible then to give a benefit to someone who doesn't really believe in a particular religion or the holy book, doesn't believe in the day of judgment, so doesn't believe in the life hereafter? What benefit can you explain to such a person? And I made a video in response to that, because I do believe, yes, you can benefit, and you can benefit greatly. One of the biggest benefits, actually, in non-religious terms, in secular terms, comes from having belief in what these 4Ts I'm going to teach you. An argument can be made that, well, who defines ethics? Because he said, he's an ethical person. So some people suggested to me, you should have talked about ethics, because ethics come from religion. And the truth of the matter is, this has been a debate between philosophers and religious experts, even in the Islamic tradition, for centuries, that really, do ethics emanate from religion, or can a person who is not religious, might even be an atheist, arrive at an ethical behavior simply because of this natural inherent goodness that all of us have in us? So this debate has been going on for centuries. I have no interest in participating in that debate, trying to prove or disprove either school of thought. And then the other thing is that ethics are not immutable, right? Even if you say, well, it's religion that provides ethics, but religion is subject to interpretation. For example, there's a lot of debate in Islam right now. Are women equal to men or not? So for me, it is unethical to accept that there could be any kind of inequality. But for somebody else, it might not be. Their interpretation of Islam and their conditioning makes it so that they say, no, it's perfectly okay, and men are superior to women. And in their mind, that's ethical. So who defines it is a big question mark. So I didn't think that that would be a good, valid reason. And frankly, the reason I have is in my mind far more important than trying to figure out whether religion provides ethics or not. And that is that all of us, all human beings, the number one goal we all have in life is pursuit of happiness. We all want to be happy. We all want, sometimes you can describe it as tranquility, as peace, as harmony, whatever you want to call it, and whatever in your mind your goal is. For some people, it is making a lot of money. For some people, it's about religion. It's about relationships. It's about marriage. It's about so many other things. But frankly, we're all one way or another in pursuit of happiness. And so if I were to describe happiness as basically tranquility, as peace of mind, as a sense of harmony, as the ability to go through challenges with inner strength and resilience and have an impactful, all of those things can be, for me, defined under, having peace and harmony in life. And for that, and that is what I did in my rebuttal video, was that I talked about these concepts and I said, this is what creates, a certain kind of mindset in your life. So when you practice these things, they are religious concepts, but I have to prove that A equals B, which means practicing these religious concepts equals B, which is some kind of secular benefit. So if you practice these kinds of concepts, this will help you to become detached from so many things that create misery in your life. And the end result is going to be that you will no longer have misery. You will have tranquility and peace. And that is a very big benefit indeed. And I can prove that in this course, or I will attempt to share with you the teachings that will help you to do that. So that was the reason why I decided that, I should create this in-depth course and make it available for everyone who wants to learn. We know that IQ, which is your intelligence, is not a predictor of future happiness or success. Some very intelligent people can have miserable lives and be total failures at life. However, EQ, which is emotional intelligence, a term that has become very popular lately, is definitely a predictor of future success, whether it is harmony in relationships. People with higher IQ tend to do better in careers anyway. They tend to do better in their marriages, in their life, and they tend to have a mindset that helps them to have a more peaceful, harmonious life. So EQ is a definite predictor of future success, or a more accurate predictor of future success. And what I'm going to be sharing with you, these concepts help create mastery of mind, which then translates into mastery of life. So they develop a higher EQ. And actually, these principles, a deeper understanding of these Islamic principles, the only outcome you can have is a higher EQ. So I'm excited to share this with you. Again, I want to remind you guys that if you would like to get a deeper understanding of mastery of mindset and things like that, and would like to find out more about the course, 30 Days to Transformation, please go to jamali.love and you will be able to download some free gifts there as well. So what are the benefits from this course? There are quite a few. I'm going to name some. And I just want to say for the record, I'm going to be referring to my notes here that I have prepared, just so that, we can share this information in a structured way. And if you are watching this on YouTube, then please make sure you check out the description. All the links I'm mentioning are there. And also we have provided for you a transcript so that you can follow along if you want to, and read it as well. We are also going to provide at the end, I am going to ask you in this class, I'm going to first share the concepts, then I'm going to also share verses from the Quran that further describe the concept. I'm going to share hadith, which is sayings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on this. And I'm also going to share some quotes from different sages, non-Muslims, but who are sages, who also say something similar, right? This has been, like I said, these are universal principles of truth. And what happens is that sometimes the message gets lost or distorted in translation, and we're not able to understand that, oh, they're basically saying the same thing. It's about Tauheed, but it's being said in a different way. So I'll share some of those with you. I will share some Sufi stories. I love sharing knowledge through stories. I think some people learn better through stories. So I'll do that. And then at the end, there's going to be an exercise that you can then do so that whatever you learned today, you can actually implement it more and get some results, some solid, tangible benefits. So I'm going to be sharing that at the end, and all of that is going to be provided to you in a PDF link in the description. So make sure you check that out as well. So some of the benefits are Muslims or non-Muslims can gain tools to build inner strength and resilience. You can develop a higher EQ, as I said, emotional intelligence. Your sense of well-being and trust and confidence will increase. For Muslims, you can actually better practice Tawheed after hopefully this class, because I have found that majority of Muslims, we don't understand what Tawheed means. So hopefully you'll be able to better understand and practice it in your life. And ultimately, not just through today's class, but also this entire course, it is designed to give you freedom, the kind of freedom that you have probably not experienced before. Um, all right. So the summary is that the 4 T's I'm going to be teaching you, starting with Tawheed, Tashakkur, Tawakkul, and Taqwa. So today's class is about Tawheed. So what does Tawheed mean? Muslims know, if you ask Muslims, this is one of the basic concepts in Islam. It is a basic requirement also. We begin, with our journey with, I bear witness that there is only one God, right? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And then I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his last prophet. So La ilaha illallah is the beginning of our journey, which basically La means no. So you're basically saying there is no one but God to be worshipped. So no God can be worshipped but God. So it is an extreme emphasis on the oneness of God. And so if you asked a Muslim, they would say Tawheed means belief that there is no partner can be assigned in the oneness of God and also in the attributes of God. So in Urdu, we say Zat or Sifat, both. There is no partner that we can assign to God. So my understanding, as I have delved deeper and deeper into this, that of course no partners can be assigned in the oneness of God, but also as I got deeper into this, the way I define it is, who is your source of strength and joy? Who or what is your source of strength and joy in life? Anyone that we have placed, or anything that we have placed above God as the source for strength and joy in life, then we have created a false God. And we have basically gone against the principle of Tawheed. So if this is too much for you to absorb right now, it's okay. As we go deeper into this, you will understand, and you will be able to understand this statement. So I'm taking a sip of my tea. So false God. What is a false God? So Muslims will tell you they are not allowed to worship any God but Allah, and any other God is a false God. So I understood this term, and I remember when I was talking to my dear friend and mentor, Chris Atwood, who has been my mentor for over a decade, he didn't quite like the term false God. And we were discussing it back and forth. He understood the concept of Tawheed really well. He practices it himself, that there is only one God. But he couldn't understand, he couldn't really relate to this concept of false God. And we were talking, and I said, Chris, it's attachments, it's our attachments. And that he understood right away, because he had taught me for such a long time how to let go of attachments. So The concept of attachments in the self-development world refers to the emotional bonds that we form with people, objects, beliefs, or outcomes. I will repeat that. Attachment refers to the emotional bonds that we form with people, objects, beliefs, or outcomes. While these attachments can provide comfort and security, they can also lead to problems when they become excessive or unhealthy. So here I want to share the story of when I discovered the attachments that I had. So my journey in self-development had been going on for almost a decade by that time. I had been able to practice a lot of the tools and techniques, and I had understood the principles really well. I understood the concept of attachments and how to let go of attachments and how these attachments hold you back and you become so dependent on them and, so on and so forth. I had been able to fight against oppression in my life. I had won the life of freedom. I had financial freedom. I was free of all oppression from my life. And I was really happy and pleased with my life at that time because I had, created that with the help of God, of course, but just with my own self, as a single mom of two wonderful daughters. And so by this time, I was living a life of comfort. I was giving myself what I had not been given in my marriages, which was love and comfort and respect. And in the process, I treated myself as a princess. And one of the things that I had become very accustomed to was I was very finicky about the kind of hotels I was willing to stay in while I traveled. They had to be the absolute best. And so when my family told me, my brothers told me that I was going to go to Hajj that year. Hajj is a pilgrimage that is mandatory for all Muslims that can afford it once in their lifetime. They have to go to Mecca in Saudi Arabia and perform the pilgrimage, which is really tough. There are millions of people there, and it is physically tough to do it. It's emotionally also tough to do it, and you're just it takes a toll. And because there are millions of people and you have to use public bathrooms and you have to stay in places which are not hotels, you have to spend the night on the sidewalk. So I was really averse to going, and I kept asking God, if you reside in my heart, if you are in my heart, why do you want me to come to Mecca and perform this ritual? What is the spiritual benefit that I can't get while I'm here in the comfort of my home in Dallas, Texas? I did go to Hajj, but I kept asking God because Hajj is supposed to be deeply spiritual and personal for each person. So I kept asking God, please tell me, why are you asking me to come and not just giving me the answers here in Dallas, Texas? So as expected, when I was performing the Hajj, I had a lot of issues with the sleeping arrangements and the bathroom arrangements and all of that stuff. And then came one day in the middle of the pilgrimage where we were supposed to arrive at a certain spot after a whole day in the heat, praying and performing the different rituals. And the night in Muzdalfa, which is supposed to be on the ground under open sky. And I was really worried about it, that, oh my God, how am I going to sleep without a comfortable bed? And will I even be able to sleep? And if I don't sleep, then next day is going to be tough because every day you have so many rituals to perform. Like I said, they're physically strenuous. So I had all these worries in my head, and we were supposed to reach a particular destination where the group that we were with had made arrangements for us to sleep, even though it was going to be on the ground, but still something, comfortable was going to be there, relatively comfortable. and we were supposed to have food and, dinner and then breakfast in the morning. You're supposed to stay there all night, and then you wake up for morning prayers, and then you start traveling to your next destination. And so I had all these worries and concerns, and what happened that our bus broke down in the middle, and we could not arrive at the place that we were supposed to in the bus, so we had to walk. And then we were informed that the particular place that had been reserved for us, since our bus broke down, we were late, so somebody else had already taken it, and that all of the ground area was now filled with people. There was no room left. And the only option we had now was to basically stop where we were, which was we were traveling on the sidewalk, and just sleep there. So we're talking about a sidewalk that is not paved, it's filled with pebbles, kind of pointy pebbles. And there were buses on both sides of the streets and they were running because, some people were still in there, so they were running, and diesel fumes, you're breathing diesel fumes. And the area is really well lit, so the street lights are so bright that it feels like it's daytime. So everything that you can possibly imagine going wrong went wrong. And so we stopped, and we all, were going to sleep. And before we went to sleep, somebody was able to find some food. So we all ate dinner, and then we went to sleep. And there were quite a few people in our group, and most of the women in the group were concerned about me because, of course, I had been the one who had made a lot of noise throughout the journey and for the last few days. So they were all concerned that, oh God, how is she going to be able to sleep? Because this is like really tough. And the one person who actually slept through the night like a baby and had to be, shaken in the morning to wake up for the morning prayers was moi. And everybody joked about it too, that, seems like you're a homeless person back in Dallas, Texas, because you were totally at ease, sleeping on the street like this. And when I woke up in the morning, and like I said, I had to be shaken up to be awake. Most other people woke up several times during the night. The pebbles were too, they were pinching the skin, and so they would wake up and pray. I slept like a baby through the night. And as I woke up and I went to use the bathroom, which was a public bathroom, of course, and I came back, I performed my prayers, and, somebody had from some other group had shared their breakfast with us. And so we had food to eat and water to drink. And in that moment, it hit me that, oh my God, everything that I need right now in this moment is being provided, not because of, what I did, but because of just divine plan. And in that moment, it was as if my life started to go in, front of me like a video playback, that every second and every time I look at my life, my past, whatever I had needed in the moment was always provided to me. Even when I thought I was going through hardship and I was being oppressed, and whatever it was that I was going through, and whatever label I gave it, whatever story I attached to that particular event, thereby making it bad in my head, actually, not only was it perfect, whatever happened to me, but also everything I needed in that moment had been provided to me and has always been provided to me. And I also realized then that the very things that I had made my goals in life to achieve, and I had achieved them, and I was so proud of having achieved them, the financial freedom, the comfort, and all of those things had now become my oppressors. And this was a really big wake-up call for me, because freedom was my highest value in life. And I realized, oh my God, I am now so dependent on having a comfortable bed, going to a nice hotel, having, a nice experience, and all of those things, having financial freedom, that they are my new masters. I am now worshiping them as false gods because they are my source of strength and joy. Instead of Allah being my source of strength and joy, it is these things that are my source of strength and joy. And without them, I go nuts. I am not happy. I'm not comfortable. I go into worry, anxiety, fear. Wow, that was such an eye-opener for me. And I saw clearly that I had now accepted these chains of slavery that were around my ankles, around my neck. They were holding me back. And that true freedom, absolute liberation comes from an absolute surrender, that you surrender even the very things that bring you joy and comfort to the will of God. When you make that supreme, you actually taste the kind of liberation you have not tasted before because it liberates you from fear. I saw clearly that, for example, my business, that it had become a source of strength for me. I was a single mom. I had gone through bankruptcy and did not know how to pay my bills. And then I created my business, which, provided a lot of financial independence in my life. So it brought a lot of comfort and happiness. However, the thought of losing that business, the thought of not having the financial freedom created a lot of fear in me. I never wanted to go back to that place of, not having money. So I realized that, wow, so much of my life was now being run not because of the joy of doing what I did, but because of the fear of not having what I have, which then sometimes made me a workaholic. And so I realized, wow, yeah, these false gods will lead you to misery, whereas the real God will only lead you to liberation and joy. Let me give you an example. It's like if you have a car, you're driving in your car and it breaks down, and you have to call a tow truck. And the tow truck driver comes in, they take their chain and they hook it up to your car, and now the tow truck can take you to the destination, which could be the repair shop or wherever. But if you called 5 other tow truck drivers who were not going to take you to your destination, but to somewhere else, and you hooked up your car to all these 6 different tow trucks at the same time, and they're all moving in different directions, you're going to be stuck. You're not going to go anywhere. So I realized that I had to unhook my chain from all those different tow trucks and leave only the one tow truck on, hook myself to God so that I could be led to the right destination. And that created a lot of freedom, joy, flow in my life. And this complete submission to divine will, which I knew so far had guided me so well and I had been able to, which I thought I was creating. I realized none of it was created by me. It was God who created all of that. So nothing bad ever comes from God. Only good comes from God. We label it as good or bad, but it's meant to serve us. It's meant to take us higher and further in the direction that we're supposed to go. So this experience really helped me to understand that why is it that we are called slaves of Allah? A Muslim is called a slave of Allah because a slave has no will of their own. A slave, he or she, has no will of her own. It's only God's will, and you have to be in absolute submission to God's will. So that was my experience of not just understanding Tauheed better, but understanding Tashakkur, Taqwa, and Tawakkul better as well. So, so I wanted to share that with you. And you probably are already thinking about how does this affect you. Don't worry, we'll do it in an exercise at the end of this class, which will go much deeper in this understanding. So just to share some points with you guys. Let's have a deeper look at understanding attachments. So number one, they're emotional bonds. They can be emotional bonds. So attachments can create a sense of belonging and connection, which are important for mental well-being. However, these bonds can sometimes turn into dependencies. For example, you could be in a very toxic marriage. It's one of the key areas that I have taught in the past. People who are in toxic marriages and relationships but they are unable to leave because they feel this is my source of strength. For women, especially, they're so dependent on men in our culture that they feel this is my source of strength. And I ask them this question all the time: who is your Rabb? Is your Rabb Allah, or is your Rabb your husband? Because if your Rabb is Allah, then a divorce doesn't matter because Allah never divorces you. However, if your Rabb is your husband, then yeah, he's your source of strength and joy, then you are going to be in misery. And same thing for men who are in toxic marriages and they think that they have to do it for the sake of their children. And their source of strength could be the identity that they have created in the marriage as the good provider, as the father, as the caretaker, and all of those things. But the reality is really the future of your children, their health, their well-being is not in your hands, not in the mother's hands. It's in the hands of Allah. So really understanding that some bonds, some emotional bonds that are abusive, that are holding us back, we still hold on to them because we have made them a source of strength and joy for us. And therefore, anything that we place above Allah is going to bring us misery. So it creates an attachment. Number two, expectation and control. Attachments often come with expectations about how others should behave or how situations should unfold. The desire for control can lead to frustration when reality doesn't match our expectations. So one of my favorite quotes from Byron Katie, one of my favorite teachers, is that we create misery when we are in disagreement with reality. For what does that mean? For example, oh, my husband cheated on me and that should not have happened. And because it happened, now I'm miserable and I'm in pain. Well, it should have happened because it has happened. There is no use fighting the reality. If you keep saying it should not have happened, I didn't deserve this, it shouldn't have happened. Whether you deserve it or not, it has happened. There is no use denying it. So the longer we stay attached to that concept, the more misery we're going to create in our lives. And the expectation that we sometimes, I was counseling this, I have a student who is a beautiful young woman, and she's so worried about getting hurt in a marriage, and she hasn't even met her husband yet. So the marriage is somewhere in the future, but she's so worried about her husband cheating on her that she's trying to create all these control mechanisms that, how can I determine that, I find a guy who is not even going to look at another woman and is never going to find another woman attractive. And I told her this is a very unrealistic expectation. That's not going to happen. But what you can, and you can't control what another person is going to do in the future. You might meet someone who is totally into you and loves you and thinks the world of you and stays with you and is loyal to you for 10 years, and then he falls in love with some other woman. And, what are you going to do then? You cannot control future. Future predictability is an illusion that we give ourselves. There is no future predictability. Anything can happen at any time. So I told her the only thing that you can control is your own mindset. You can work on yourself, make yourself so strong and resilient that no matter what happens with your husband to be in the future, you're still going to be okay. It's not that you will not experience pain, but misery is a different thing. Misery is just a prolonged experience of pain that might have happened, 20 years ago. But we're still in misery because we just are attached to some kind of an expectation. The third one is fear of loss. Strong attachments can create a fear of losing what we value, leading to anxiety and insecurity. Just like what I shared with you earlier, that my business had become such a sense of security for me that the fear of losing it created a lot of anxiety. I see this, by the way, a lot in parents, especially Desi parents, when I work with them, because all of us, of course, as parents, we love our children. Probably the kind of love we have never experienced before is what we experience with our children. And the fear of them getting hurt creates a lot of anxiety. And what I see in Desi parents is that because of that fear, they try to control their children a lot. helicopter parents. One of the number one complaints I get from young people that I work with that, are taking my courses they're in their 20s and 30s. And even then, they could be in their late 20s and 30s living in America, but their parents are too controlling. And there's constant struggle going on between the kids and the parents. And it's really because the parents don't know how to control their fear. This is where they have placed the love of their child above the love for God, above faith in God. They are not practicing tawakkul. So I teach the parents, sometimes I have to counsel both the parents and the children. And I have to teach the parents how to practice tawakkul, because I'm a mother too. I know how it feels. I've been through it myself. Being a mother of two daughters, single mom of two daughters, not easy. And they're very strong-minded women, as you can probably imagine. I raised them to be strong-minded, opinionated women, and they were not going to have any of it. I tried to be a helicopter parent. I couldn't help my, Eastern genes. That's who I was. That's what I saw growing up. So I thought I was being a very good, loving, cautious parent. And I realized what I was instilling in them by expressing my fear it's instilling fear and insecurity in them. So I was not only damaging myself, I was actually damaging the very children I love so much and want them to flourish and to succeed in life. And number two, I was trying to act as their Rabb. Rabb is God, and my Rabb is Allah and their Rabb is Allah. And Allah intimately and very lovingly is aware of my life and takes care of me. And similarly, he takes care of them as well and loves them more than I can love them myself. So again, it's when we start controlling, we feel insecurity. It is because of an attachment. It is not because of love. Love is liberating. It is freeing. Attachment is toxic, and it holds you back, and it enslaves you and it enslaves the other person that you think you love, but you're actually trying to control. Number four, identity and self-worth. Attachments can become intertwined with our identity. We might define ourselves through our relationships or possessions, making it hard to maintain a sense of self when those attachments are threatened. I see this a lot in so many different things. These days, because I've been raising my voice regarding rights of Muslim women and how the patriarchal conditioning is responsible for the hijacking of the rights of Muslim women. Islam, Quran, the life of Prophet ﷺ, when read and studied properly, shows you that Islam liberated women. Islam gave agency and autonomy to women, but it's the patriarchal mindset and the patriarchal interpretations done of the divine text that have led to control and oppression of women. And it is horrible. You look at what Islam did almost 1500 years ago, which was radical for those times. Nowhere in the world had women been given such recognition and equality to men. And then you look at Islam today and you see complete opposite. It's, women are not considered equal. Women are not given agency, and women are told to cover up, and, sometimes just one eye showing. And all of those things are a result of the patriarchal conditioning. And here's the interesting thing. When I raise my voice against this, the most resistance, the most fierce resistance that I face, and some of my other friends, female scholars who are talking about it, the most fierce resistance comes from women. Why? Because they are so attached to this identity that has been given to them by the patriarchal mindset, but it gives them this comfort of knowing that they are raised with this identity that no matter what you do, you're going to be inferior to men. However, if you, for example, take hijab or you cover yourself, your face, then you are going to be more pious in the eyes of Allah. And if you're more pious than other women, you are therefore superior to other women. So these women, because of the patriarchal conditioning, are raised with this sense that my biggest enemy is another woman, because I am totally dependent on a man. My security and my well-being is dependent on a man. Therefore, another woman is my biggest enemy. So it gives them a lot of comfort to know I'm superior to other women, right? So instead of actually, because a virtue, you know, what is virtue? Virtue would define that you would have humility and not the sense of superiority and judgment for other women. So their attachment to whatever this identity is so strong that when it's threatened, they become very abusive, they become ferocious, they become hateful, they become judgmental, all because of the attachment. If you were actually attached to Allah, who liberates you and tells you that do not ever go into superiority, nobody's superior, unless you have taqwa and faith, and we'll get to that later. But you still don't get to judge other humans, Muslims or non-Muslims. But the attachment, because it always leads to misery, it turns a person into a toxic person. Again, I could go much deeper into this with identity and self-worth. A lot of times, people determine their self-worth from the validation they get from society, from the validation they're getting from another person. That's why a lot of people stay in abusive marriages, both men and women who are enduring abuse stay in that abusive situation because somewhere, somehow they are getting validation that, this is what you're a good husband, or you're a good son, you're a good father, or you're a good mother, good wife, whatever. And it's because of this toxic attachment. So moving on, number 5 is mindfulness and presence. So if you have these toxic attachments, what they do is you are no longer mindful, you're not even self-aware a lot of times, and you don't have presence in the present moment. So a lot of times you'll see that people will be so stuck on something that happened in their past. Like I said, it happened maybe 20 years ago, but they're still miserable about it. So they have this unhealthy attachment, or they have such a fear of the future, of losing something, that they are either living in the past or they're living in the future, and they're not in the present moment. And Quran says that the awliya Allah, the friends of Allah, do not experience sorrow, and they do not experience fear. So sorrow is over something that has happened, so living in the past, and fear is about something that is going to happen in the future, so living in the future. Again, detachment, healthy detachment encourages mindfulness, allowing us to appreciate the present moment without being overly fixated on outcomes or attachments. So let's quickly go over some of the problems that are associated with attachments. So number 1 is emotional distress. It creates emotional distress. Fear of losing attachments can lead to anxiety, sadness, or feelings of inadequacy. So again, this is all about your attachment to these false gods, right? Number 2, dependency. Over-reliance on people or things for happiness can stifle a person's growth and independence, that total freedom that I talked about. Number 3, resentment. Attachments can create resentment when expectations aren't met, leading to conflict in relationships. There was a video I did which went viral in Pakistan and got a lot of backlash because I said something that was radical for Pakistanis. And I said, your spouse is not responsible for your happiness. You are responsible for your happiness. So they were just, how can you say that? Of course it's her responsibility, or of course it's her responsibility. So what is that? That is attachment to an expectation. The truth of the matter is nobody's perfect. We are all going to make mistakes. We're fallible. We have a very unhealthy attachment, by the way, to our Muslim scholars. We have an expectation. They're perfect. They can do no wrong. Everything they say is right. And what does that do? It creates a lot of distress in us. If somebody does something, that is against what we believe, we go into such distress. And then another very toxic outcome is that we take the words of Muslim scholars as the last word. We don't bother reading the Quran ourselves. We don't bother trying to understand the Quran and trying to interpret the Quran ourselves. And we don't even realize that we are placing the word of a scholar, no matter how esteemed and knowledgeable they are, the word of a man above the word of God. We are actually out of alignment with our Tauheed. How can anyone be a partner with God? Anyone. Quran is God's book. By definition, speech of God. So if God is infinite, if Allah is infinite, which we know Allah is infinite, if Allah is infinite, how can his speech be finite? How? It's not possible. It has to be infinite, which means that you will always find people who will come up with interpretation that you may not have thought about before. That is how it's meant to be. It is not a regular book which is finite and the message is encapsulated in the book, in the words, in the pages. Quran is divine speech. It has infinite meanings and infinite implications, and it is going to continue to grow and satisfy humanity till the end of times, because it is divine speech, right? So how can one person claim to have understood Quran in its entirety? Other than the Holy Prophet ﷺ, who is no longer amongst us, nobody could claim that. And even he could claim it because Allah taught him Quran directly through Angel Gabriel. So no one human being can claim to know and understand the Quran in its entirety. It's in my opinion, shirk. So but we do it all the time. Number 4, stagnation. Being too attached to certain outcomes can hinder flexibility and adaptability, preventing us from embracing new opportunities, just like what I said about understanding Quran. Number 5 is overwhelm. Managing multiple attachments can become emotionally exhausting, leading to burnout. So think about the example I gave you. If you hook yourself up to 6 tow trucks, you're going to have, this overwhelm, burnout. You're going to feel stuck. You're going to have resentment. You're going to feel confused. What's going on? Why is God not helping me? Well, because, examine your own behavior. Next is neglect of self. Focusing too much on attachments can lead to neglecting personal needs, goals, and self-care. One of the biggest problems I find in people, especially from the Eastern culture, women from the Eastern culture, is not practicing good boundaries. So, this concept of self-sacrifice is glorified so much, especially for women, that they don't know how to practice boundaries, and all they know is how to sacrifice, kind of be a doormat, be agreeable all the time, and they completely neglect their own self. And so their attachment is to getting the validation from others, for which they are willing to sacrifice themselves. And again, attach yourself to God. The only attachment, in my opinion, that merits, not just that you may do that, but actually you should do it, and that's going to liberate you, is attachment to God, to Allah. Number 7, loss of perspective. Intense attachments can cloud judgment and make it difficult to see situations objectively. So many examples for this as well, where when you are so attached to a thing, an idea, an identity, or a person, that it just totally clouds your judgment, and you make very, very foolish decisions. I know of someone, I can give you an example. I know someone who is a woman I know, in her 50s or 60s, and has, feels so lonely. And she fell in love with someone who has so many red flags that, it is so obvious that what waits ahead of her is disaster. And she's not stupid, she's smart. But her attachment is so intense. She's calling it love, of course, but it's not. There's a lot of neglect and emotional abuse in the relationship already. So it's not love. It's just an intense attachment. And it's going to lead to disaster. But she's completely lost perspective. And that happens to a lot of us. Number 8, fear of change. Attachment can make individuals resistant to change, even when it might be necessary or beneficial. So this is a really good one, because a lot of times, we all know that we need to grow. In order to be happy in life, we have to keep growing. One of the necessary elements of growth is change. And that creates so much fear because change means we have to go into the unknown. And the known situation might not be comfortable for us. That's why a lot of people stay in abusive situations or in bad jobs and careers. They hate it, but there's comfort because it's the known. They're comfortable with it. So in order to make a change, they have to take a leap of faith, which means uncertainty and change, and they don't want to do it. So a lot of times people just stay in very toxic, unhealthy situations because of their attachment to familiarity. So the conclusion is that recognizing and understanding attachments can be a crucial part of self-development. Striving for a balance, valuing connections while maintaining a sense of independence can lead to healthier relationships and a more fulfilling life. Developing mindfulness and self-awareness can help individuals navigate their attachments in a constructive way. Now we're going to talk about Tauheed. So like I said, the Islamic concept of Tauheed, or the oneness of God, plays a significant role in fostering resilience and emotional well-being. Here's how Tauheed contributes to a balanced perspective on attachments and builds resilience. Understanding Tauheed. Number one, unity of purpose. Tauheed emphasizes that everything in existence is interconnected through one creator. This understanding fosters a sense of purpose and belonging, which can provide emotional strength. One of the biggest problems in today's world is the sense of loneliness, right? So Tauheed, because it emphasizes that everything is created, because it's created, everything is interconnected because it's all created by one creator, and he is always and intimately connected to all of us, to all of his creation. So in a way, we are all interconnected as well. Number two, detachment from worldly attachments. This is a big one. By recognizing that everything other than God is temporary, individuals are encouraged to cultivate healthy detachment from worldly attachments. This perspective reduces the fear of loss and helps to navigate life's challenges more smoothly. We're going to talk more about this when we talk about tawakkul. So how is this in Tawheed? One of the attributes of Allah is that He is the only one permanent. He is Qayyum. Everything else is temporary. So me, my awareness, my life right now, it's not going to last. It's temporary. So attaching any kind of permanence to anything other than God is, you're assigning a partner to God. We cannot assign any partners to God. So Tawheed helps us to remember that no matter what I'm going through, it's temporary. No matter how big my problem is, right? No matter how big my problem is, I say Allahu Akbar to remind me that Allah is the greatest. Allah is greater than this problem I have. This problem cannot be greater than Allah's ability, right? Na'uzubillah. So I cannot assign any partnership to Allah. So no matter how great my challenge is, Allah is still greater, right? So Tawheed helps you in ways that you cannot even imagine if you understand and practice the concept of Tawheed on a daily basis. I promise you, your challenges will begin to disappear. And the antidote to those challenges, if the challenges are a poison, then the antidote is Tawheed and Tawakkul and Tashakkar and Taqwa, as we will study more. Number three, surrender and trust. Tawheed instills a sense of trust in God's plan. Believing that everything happens according to divine wisdom can help individuals accept circumstances beyond their control, enhancing their ability to cope with adversity. Again, we're going to discuss this more in Tawakkul as well. But, this is where, if you're trying to control your future or your children's future, you're basically what you're doing is you're going into, I teach this other thing in my 30 Days to Transformation, the three types of businesses. There's God's business, there's my business, and then there's their business, right? So when you are trying to control the future of your children, you are going into their business and you're going into God's business. The only business you're supposed to be in is my business. So don't try to play God in your children's life or in your own life. Trying to control the future creates so much misery in our lives because we don't understand Tauheed. We are trying to assign an attribute of God to either ourselves or to somebody else, and it is only going to lead us to misery. The future is only in God's control. So submission creates peace, right? Next is identity and self-worth. Understanding one's identity as a servant, and I would even say as a slave of Allah, can foster self-worth that is not tied to external factors such as possessions or relationships. This solid foundation allows individuals to face life's ups and downs with confidence. You know, in Urdu, we have that famous sher, वो एक सजदा जो तुझे देता है हजार सजदों से निजात, right? That one prostration that frees you from thousands of prostration. What is prostration? We are worshiping someone. We are demeaning our self-worth in front of somebody or something to attain that. And that prostration or that willing submission, absolute surrender to the most powerful being actually gives you such freedom and nobility and a sense of self-worth. You know, when we humiliate ourselves in front of God, it actually raises our self-worth. You will find that people who are absolutely submitted and surrendered to God's will cannot be controlled. Nobody can buy them. Nobody can control them. They don't care if you even kill them because they know this life is temporary anyway. This life belongs to Allah. So yeah, I'll willingly give up my life. Those are the people who have the highest sense of self-worth, self-esteem, self-love, and yet they are also the most humble and kindest people. It creates such a beautiful, masterful personality that it is amazing. Case in point, example, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You know, look at his example. That's what I'm talking about. Number 5, mindfulness and presence. Tauheed encourages mindfulness as believers focus on their relationship with God. This practice can help individuals remain present, reducing anxiety and overthinking about attachments or outcomes. This is a practice that I do all the time, which we will, talk about as we go further. Anytime you are miserable in life, I encourage you to just sit down and think, which of these principles am I not practicing right now? In Urdu, I say, Tauheed mein kahan gadbad ho rahi hai, right? So where am I messing up in my Tauheed right now? And whatever the situation is, I promise you, you will eventually find, oh, this is where I have hooked up my car to the wrong tow truck. And I need to unhook from that and hook it back to Allah. Allah tells us to hold on to his rope and his rope alone, because that's what's going to eradicate misery, and it's going to create a sense of freedom, joy, and strength in your life. So let's talk about a few other concepts. Building resilience through Tauheed. Number 1, emotional stability. A strong belief in Tauheed provides emotional grounding. When faced with difficulties, individuals can draw strength from their faith, leading to greater emotional stability. Coping mechanisms. The concept encourages positive coping strategies such as prayer and reflection, which can be powerful tools in managing stress and emotional challenges. So that's one of the objections I sometimes get. You know, I gave you an example of the young agnostic man who had asked this question. So one says some people, agnostic people or atheists love to point this out, that all this is a mental construct anyway, isn't it? You cannot prove that God exists. Therefore, all these concepts that you're talking about are mental constructs. You can't prove that, Tawheed exists, for example. And I say to them, yeah, they are mental constructs. It's a belief. It's about faith. We have faith in the unseen. So belief is about what you believe in. And a lot of times it's not tangible. But here's the thing, what is tangible? The results. The results are tangible. They can be measured. They've been studied. And your life will change in ways that is measurable. So if it is just a belief, maybe it's a placebo, who cares? Look at the results. If the goal in your life, if you are an agnostic person or an atheist, if the goal in life is to have a sense of well-being, and this provides well-being, what's wrong with that? So if it's a coping mechanism, we need coping mechanisms in life anyway, as individuals, as humans. That's what psychology teaches us, right? All therapy and all of that is really about coping mechanisms, healing through that, and all of that stuff. We will all go through challenges in life. There is no escaping that. You can be like what I said to that agnostic boy. It's wonderful that you have a good life, you are enjoying life, and you're an ethical person. But what are you going to do when you face challenges in life? How are you going to cope? Because we all need that, whether we are believers in some kind of religion or not. As human beings, we want to be able to overcome challenges, right? What are you going to do then? Is there a coping mechanism that you have that will help you no matter what kind of challenge you're faced with? One of the things I say to people when we were going through the pandemic was, this is a beautiful reminder, because the world was hit with uncertainty, right? The false god of medical science was completely broken, right? But of the medical science, we didn't even know how much we were attached to that Buddha, to that false god. We worshiped that false god. And then when we were shown that, our own well-being, the well-being of our loved ones, was completely uncertain now, the sense of doom and despair was so real. And this god of science could now no longer help us. The medical doctors, the scientists were also just as scared and had no clue what to do in the beginning of the pandemic. So this was a beautiful reminder from God that I am the only true God. Everything else is false and temporary, and will be shown to you how you are creating misery by worshiping that God. So when we go through uncertainty, when we go through loss, when we go through a challenging situation, what kind of coping mechanisms do you have in place? And if Tauheed, Taqwa, Tawakkul, Tashakkar provide nothing else but a great coping mechanism for you to have a good life where you can navigate through challenges easier than when you would otherwise, hey, great. Of course, if you're a Muslim, then these concepts will also help you in the hereafter, in life after death. But I'm talking about just benefit in this world, in this life. So if it is a coping mechanism, if it is a placebo, hey, I'm all for it. Give me this placebo, because of this, I don't have to take anxiety pills. I don't have to take depression medicine. I don't have to harm my body with all of those things. I don't have to become toxic and become hurtful to other people. I don't have to hurt myself. There are all these benefits that come from this. And because of this, I will have mastery of mind and therefore mastery of life. I'm all for it. Number 4 is, number 3 is perspective on trials, as I just talked about it. Tauheed teaches that trials are part of life's journey and can be opportunities for growth. The perspective fosters resilience by helping individuals view challenges as transient and surmountable. Community support is number 4, based in Tauheed, often fosters a sense of community among believers. The support system can provide encouragement and strength in difficult times. So this is such a great example of the division we have in the Muslim world right now, in the Muslim Ummah, especially when it comes to the gender divide, because we have started to believe in Tauheed. Tauheed is a word now become quite famous in Pakistan, but basically the definition is when you believe in the authority of a system or a person when you place their authority above Allah's authority, that system or person is Tauheed. So this patriarchal interpretation of Quran is a Tauheed. And look at what it has done. it has created gender divide. It has created oppression of women. But if you were to actually go back to Tauheed, accepting Allah as the authority, and you fixed your Tauheed, you would actually have harmony in the genders, and you would have allyship between the two genders instead of the struggle and the fight that we witness right now. And you will have the same thing. We would not need to have these sects that we have. The Muslim Ummah is divided into sects. And we would have harmony actually with all of creation if we could actually implement all of these things in Tawheed. Number 5, hope and optimism. Trusting in God's mercy and wisdom can instill hope, encouraging individuals to persevere through hardships with the belief that better times are ahead. So a conclusion is Tawheed not only shapes a believer's relationship with God, but also profoundly influences how they navigate attachments and challenges in life. By promoting detachment from the ephemeral and fostering a deep sense of purpose and resilience, Tawheed helps individuals build a robust inner strength that empowers them to face life's trials with confidence and grace. So I hope that was very helpful. I am going to now share some quotes from Quran, from Hadith, and from other sages that are non-Muslims even. And then I will give you a few stories and then a practice so you can actually implement whatever we just discussed. So here are a few verses from the Quran. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Surah Baqarah, from ayat 155 to 157. And by the way, you can get this in the PDF, which is in, if you're watching this on YouTube, it will be in the description. So Baqarah 155 to 157. The Baqarah is the second chapter. So, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. When disaster strikes them, say, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to him we will return. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Number 2, Surah Al-Anfal. So that is chapter 8, verse 28. And know that your properties and your children are but a trial, and that Allah has with him a great reward. So please listen to these Quranic verses with the perspectives I have just shared, with attachment, false gods, and how they create toxic results in our lives. You know, when I used to read these ayats, they used to sound like, oh my God, why is God, you know, he sounded like a tyrannical God. Why does he want me to love him more than my own, you know, parents and my children? And that's so hard, and I'm a human, and da da. And then as I lived life, I realized that actually even those attachments to our parents, to our spouses, to our children, when we place them above God, they will lead to misery in life. And that the only way you can not only experience freedom, but actually healthy love. So when you place your attachment to Allah as the first attachment and nothing goes above that, you actually find that you're able to love the same people with more healthier love, because when we have attachment, we don't even realize it, but we start manipulating and controlling, right? Because we have all those fears then. But when you let that go, you are a person whose love is truly healing to all those around them, whether it's their relatives, friends, or just other people. You become a source of unconditional love. Next is Surah Al-Hadid, Surah 57, verse 23. So that you may not grieve for what has escaped you, nor rejoice in what he has given you. And Allah does not like any arrogant boaster. Next is Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 26. Say, O Allah, owner of sovereignty, you give sovereignty to whom you will and take sovereignty away from whom you will, and you honor whom you will and humble whom you will. In your hand is all good. Indeed, you are over all things competent. Number 5, Surah Tawbah, chapter 9, verse 24. Say, if your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your wives, your relatives, the wealth which you have obtained, the commerce in which you fear declining, and the dwellings in which you delight are more beloved to you than Allah and His Messenger and jihad in His cause, then wait until Allah executes His command. And Allah does not guide the defiantly disobedient people. May Allah Ta'ala make us from the obedient people, and may Allah Ta'ala help us to release all these attachments, because there is a very dire warning here that if you do not unhook from those attachments, then Allah is saying, wait until Allah executes His command. This is a warning, a dire warning. And you will see the execution of His command if you have misery in your life. You are being warned. It's like He's knocking on your door telling you, correct your ways right now. There is something wrong in your tawheed or your tawakkul or your taqwa. Something is not right. Correct it. And it is Allah's mercy that He is warning us and He is knocking on our door to try to wake us up. It is Allah's compassion and mercy. May Allah guide us to the truth. Ameen. And may Allah help us to release all these attachments that keep us enslaved and keep us from being an absolutely submitted slave of Allah. Ameen. So these verses encourage a perspective that values reliance on God, on Allah, over attachments to worldly possessions, relationships, or outcomes, reinforcing the idea of detachment and trust in divine wisdom. I will now read some Ahadees for you. Here are some quotes from the Hadith tradition that address the nature of attachments and the importance of detachment from worldly possessions and desires. Number one, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The world is a prison for the believer and a paradise for the disbeliever." This is from Sahih Muslim. Number two, from Sahih Bukhari, Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, said, "Be in this world as if you were a stranger or a traveler." How beautiful. So think about it, reflect upon it based on what we have been talking about. Number three, from Sahih Bukhari, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Riches do not mean having a lot of property, but riches are self-sufficiency." How beautiful is that? So a truly abundant person, a truly wealthy person is not someone who has a lot of worldly property. A truly wealthy person is that who is self-sufficient, meaning he's sufficient with God, Razi barazahe ilahi, right? Allah is kafi for me. Allah is sufficient for me. How beautiful is that? Number four, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever is more concerned with this world will never find satisfaction, and whoever is more concerned with the hereafter will find satisfaction." Again, you have to give up a lot of attachments to be more concerned about the hereafter, right? So this is from Al-Muajjam Al-Kabir. Next one is from Sunan Ibn Majah. Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, said, "The most beloved of people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to others." Remember, we talked about that if you actually practice Tauheed, you will have a sense of community and connectedness to other Muslims and all of creation. So this is also reflecting upon that as a person, if you want to be beloved to Allah, then you should be the most beneficial person to other people. And by the way, it doesn't mention here that he's most beneficial to other Muslims. It is to others. So next one is Sunan Abi Dawud. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Do not let your love for a people lead you to injustice, and do not let your hatred for a people prevent you from being just." So what we have been seeing, if we actually followed what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said, and if the world followed it, there would be no genocide, there would be no injustice, there would be no discrimination, in certain aspects, I talk about this, that even nationalism is not encouraged in Islam, because sometimes in love for our own country, we think that it is okay for us to be unjust to people of another country. Or in Pakistan, we've noticed this, which was so painful for me. And I wrote the song Mitti Ki Pukar on 14th of August, and it's on YouTube if you want to listen to it. A friend of mine sang it, and the whole concept, the reason why I wrote it was because it was so painful to watch the division amongst Pakistanis, the hatred within Pakistan for different, because of political affiliation. Political affiliation is also another false god, or political leaders are false gods. When, in Pakistan, people used to say, and it was painful for me to hear it, when you become a lover of Tauheed, you will find you just have zero tolerance for anything that, conflicts with Tauheed. When people used to say, so and so, Pakistan ki aakhri ummeed hai. And it was like, oh my God, that is such a blasphemous statement. Pakistan ki pehli umeed or Pakistan ki aakhri umeed, sirf wo hai, Allah. That's it. Allah will use whoever he wants to. But the audacity of people to utter a statement like this and then claim to be Muslims and then claim to be wanting a state of Medina was absolutely beyond me. But this is what happens when we will create all these attachments, and we will fight for those attachments because they, help in our identity. We feel superior to other people, whatever it is. But we cannot ever attribute that kind of, somebody being our source of strength and our source of joy other than Allah Ta'ala. Then what happened is what will happen. The whole country right now, when I'm recording this, it is end of October in 2024, Pakistan has been going downhill more and more. And it's this shirk, I believe. It's this lack of Tauheed. It's this lack of faith in Allah being the ultimate answer. And, look at where we are. We are more divided than ever. The country is more bankrupt. The poor people are suffering. The conditions are only getting worse and worse, and we're getting more and more divided. And we are just not willing to look at our attachments, to submit to Allah, become his slave and say, Allah, show us your will. I personally do not talk about politics because it's a heated debate. I don't want to talk about it. I only believe that when we go back to the basics, Allah will then change our situation for us. But when we are following a Tauheed, we are never going to be given reprieve, right? So again, I will repeat this hadith. Prophet ﷺ said, do not let your love for a people, for a group of people, lead you to injustice, and do not let your hatred for a people prevent you from being just. And this applies to everyone, right? The powers that be in Pakistan are doing injustice to the political party that they hate. I mean, where is Islam in any of this? Islam does not allow any kind of injustice, but we use the name of Islam to oppress and to do injustice. The blasphemy law in Pakistan, for example, I've spoken against it. It is used to oppress people, to commit such heinous crimes of violence against people, against non-Muslims. We oppress, in Pakistan, we oppress our minorities in the name of Islam, the religion that constantly taught us to be just, the prophet who constantly taught us to be just. We have become unjust, and we justify it by using the name of Islam. Please tell me what can be a bigger lie than that? Well, what can be a bigger bigotry than this? This is munafiqat of the highest order. Our attachments have caused us to become munafiqs. This is one of the biggest tragedies right now. The only antidote, the only solution is Tauheed. And that's why I said, if we understood Tauheed better, we would be better. But we're not better because we're not understanding Tauheed better. So may Allah Ta'ala guide us to the truth, and may Allah Ta'ala really help us to practice Tauheed the way he deserves Tauheed. May he allow us to love him and to worship him the way that he actually deserves to be worshipped. I know we will be imperfect in it, but at least we can try to strive in that direction. So these Ahadees emphasize the transient nature of worldly attachments and the importance of focusing on spiritual growth, justice, and self-sufficiency. They encourage a balanced approach to life, which where one's ultimate concern lies in the hereafter rather than in material possessions. So I'm sorry, this is getting long. I didn't realize it was going to be this long, but hopefully this is providing a lot of value as well. We're almost done. So a couple of more things, and then I will give you the exercise so you can practice for the next couple of days before I drop the next episode on YouTube. So let's look at some quotes from various sages. Like, these concepts were discussed even before Islam, because these are universal concepts of truth, and they've been discussed, since Islam as well. So Buddha said, attachment is the root of all suffering. I don't think at this point I even need to explain what that means. I think everybody can understand by this time. Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Okay, detachment, detachment, detachment. Number 3, Rumi said, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. What a beautiful quote. Let life live through you. In other words, become an instrument of divine will. Be a completely submitted, surrendered human, and you're simply an instrument of divine will. You have no will of your own. Let God work through you. Such a beautiful concept. Eckhart Tolle said, the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about it. Now, I discussed this in much deeper, in depth in my 30 Days to Transformation course. This is about, how to think about your thinking, how to, whatever stories you have attached to the event that happened in your life so many years ago, how to change that story, change that narrative, so that the very thing that has been causing you pain can become a source of happiness for you. That's how it is for me. All the oppression and the abusive marriages that I suffered, I'm so deeply grateful for them today, because it made me who I am today, right? So if you want to get more information, please make sure you go to jamali.love/freedom. You'll find more information about the course, or just make sure you go to jamali.love and download your free gifts, because one of them is that, how to turn the thorn into your life into a rose. The Dalai Lama said, attachment is the desire to possess, to cling to something, and it is the cause of suffering. Again, now you can probably understand it without explanation. Lao Tzu, who was a Chinese sage, thousands of years ago, he's the one who wrote Tao Te Ching, a really amazing book if you want to really get, again, universal principles of truth and wisdom. So Lao Tzu said, if you realize that all things change, there is nothing you will try to hold on to. How beautiful. Such a simple statement, but deeply wise. Number 7, Carl Jung. What you resist persists. Again, I go into this in a lot more detail in the 30 days course. So if you're focused, like, oh my God, I have my husband cheated on me, he betrayed me, and he shouldn't have done that. Well, guess what? 20 years later, you're still going to be talking about it, because what you resist persists. And Osho, some people may not like him. He has said some wise things from time to time, so I thought I would include that in there. Not my, favorite sage. I don't even consider him a sage, but he did have some really good things to say once in a while. So here's a statement from Osho. The moment you accept what troubles you've been given, the door will open. So these quotes emphasize the transient nature of attachments and the importance of cultivating a mindset that embraces change and acceptance. I also wanted to share with you a few stories from the Sufi tradition, because Sufi is usually taught with a lot of stories, and there's such wisdom in many of these stories, and unfortunately people don't understand them. Then they make Sufism another taghut, and they start following they start treating their pir or their sheikh as if, nauzubillah, another god. And that is so problematic, in my opinion. But we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of wisdom in Sufism, and the Sufi sheikhs, what they taught was amazing. And I find that the way Sufis practiced Tauheed was amazing. incredibly amazing. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't understand what they were saying, so they attach different meaning to it. So Abu Yazid al-Bastami, a renowned Sufi mystic, once climbed a mountain to seek divine knowledge. He reached the peak and called out to God, asking for a sign. Instead of receiving a vision or a message, he heard a voice telling him, "O Abu Yazid, you have become attached to this mountain. If you want to see me, leave it behind." This story illustrates the idea that attachment to physical places or experiences can hinder spiritual progress. True connection with the divine requires letting go of worldly attachments. And in my opinion, it actually even goes deeper, because if you think that climbing a mountain or doing a certain thing is going to get you closer to God, then you are putting conditions on God, and God does not accept conditions, right? I can also relate this to my experience when I was saying, if you're in my heart, why do I need to come to Hajj, right? Well, because it's Allah's order and he wants me to come to Hajj. I need to just submit. And so when I submitted, then I got the inspiration. So we try to ascertain how God is going to make us closer to him, but God is saying, no, that's an attachment you need to let go. I will, if you ask me, I will give it to you, but I will give it to you the way I want to give it to you and what is best for you. uh, Let me take another one. This is a good one. I used to think this was from the Native American tradition, but this is actually a Sufi tale. So this Sufi tale tells of a wise elder who explained to a young man that inside each person there are two wolves, one representing attachment, greed, and anger, and the other symbolizing detachment, peace, and love. The young man asked which wolf would win, and the elder replied, "The one you feed." So wise. This fable teaches that our focus and choices determine which attachments, and therefore the result of the attachment, we strengthen. So if you're going to constantly feed attachment, then you will have greed, anger, resentment, unhappiness, suffering in your life. And if you feed the other wolf, which is of detachment, then you will have uh, um, peace and which one was the other one? Hang on. Peace and love and submission to God and conscious decision making and spiritual journey. The last story I want to share is a Sufi master once told his disciples, a fish in the ocean is unaware of its surroundings until it is taken out of the water. He explained that just as the fish is attached to its environment, people become attached to their worldly situations. Only when faced with separation, such as loss or hardship, do they realize their attachment. So this story encourages a deeper understanding of the transient nature of life and importance of spiritual awareness. So I shared this because a lot of us, face grief because of loss. And when we had the things, a lot of times we don't appreciate it. We don't do gratitude for it. So I will discuss this deeper in the section on gratitude. But when we actually lose it, not only do we realize what importance it held in our lives, but then we keep grieving for it. And sometimes Allah takes it away for us to see how badly attached we are to it. This is sometimes the only way we're going to wake up to reality, because when we are holding on to something very badly, it stops our growth. We are stuck. Remember what I talked about, the tow truck? So Allah takes it away to show us that you need to unhook and hook back into me so you can move forward in your life. And this really is one of the best ways to have sabr and heal over a loss. Now, we're going to do this exercise. This is going to help you to really absorb this information in a much, much better way. I really encourage you to do this exercise because I know most people just watch a video, they listen, and then they're done. But believe me, real knowledge creation takes place when you do exercises, because that's when you're actually going to see, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that this is what I was doing in my life. So So what I want you to do is, number one, take a journal and list 3 to 5 things or relationships that you feel strongly attached to. So it could be possessions, it could be people, it could even be future goals. Now, with each item, next to each item, write down how these attachments make you feel. Do they bring you joy? Do they bring you anxiety? Do they cause you a sense of security or insecurity? Now, after you have completed the list, I want you to reflect on the following questions. How does this particular attachment affect my daily life? What fears arise when you think about losing this particular attachment? In what ways might you be clinging to this particular attachment? And how could letting go lead to greater peace or freedom? The next question I want you to ask is, how am I disaligning myself from the concept of Tauheed that we have just learned by holding on to this attachment? Visualize that tow truck image that I gave you, that if you are hooking on to this other tow truck, how is it stopping your growth? How is it affecting you? And if you were to let go, how would it help you in your life in moving forward? Please do this for each attachment on your list. And I can promise you that letting go of these attachments on paper is going to help you taste freedom that you have not tasted before. And when you're letting go of this attachment, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be taken away from your life, right? If you are attached, for example, to your children so much that it creates so much fear and anxiety, and if you submit your children and their well-being, you surrender that to God, doesn't mean, God forbid, that God is going to take your children away. No, it just means that God is going to heal the fear and the control issues that you have in that area. And you're going to be able to love better. And I've even done it with goals. When I was able to let go of certain attachments to goals, then what I realized was that, because I was so attached to a certain outcome, when I let that attachment go, Allah showed me other ways that I wasn't even looking at, which would then help me achieve that same goal in a much better way, right? So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you have questions. Like I said, after the whole course is done, I will address questions. And if you have any comments to share, let me know. Please share this video with other people, as many people as you feel can benefit from it. This is my mission in helping, people get rid of misery in their lives. So help me in this mission. And remember, if you're able to bring ease into a person's life, that is how Allah is most happy with you. So that's how I'm I'm fixing my akhirah this way, because I know I'm not a very prayerful person. So your duas are deeply appreciated. And you can also participate in this Sadaqah Jariyah, because when you forward the video to someone and it helps bring some kind of ease into their lives and they are able to end suffering, then that is a Sadaqah Jariyah for you. And maybe, who knows, maybe they will share it with other people. So thank you so much. Lots of love, and I will see you soon in the next video. If you like our content, please remember to subscribe and share this with whomever you think needs to hear this message.